Okay, so I want to welcome everyone tonight to session 2 of our Living Well series. Tonight, the topic is Eat Well. So we're going to be talking about a lot of our affiliates' favorite subjects. To get started, I just wanted to go over a couple little housekeeping things. Just so everyone knows, I have everyone muted. And if you are going to speak up, you can unmute yourself. As far as participants go, we have our Downtown Wellness Berks affiliates who will act as the discussion leaders, but I want everyone on the call to feel welcome to have comments and share stories and ask questions. I'll do my best to field questions in the chat box, so please feel free to use that area if you have a question, and I'll try my best to field those to our discussion leaders as things pop up. Anyone can also just, feel free to chime in to add to the discussion, because that's what we're having here. It's an open discussion, kind of like a forum. So we will, I just wanted to do our little disclaimer to just remind everybody that this and all presentations of the Living Well series are being provided for educational and informational purposes, and the statements of fact and opinions expressed by everyone here tonight are individual participants' opinions. So these discussions are not to be used as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. As a group, Downtown Wellness Berks aims to raise awareness about the many supportive habits, helpers, and local practitioners and businesses that can aid in the building of a healthier lifestyle. So attendees should note, like I said, that all the sessions are being recorded so that we can share this content with people who aren't able to be here tonight, so we can keep the information going. So first off, I will have all of our affiliates in attendance introduce yourselves. So let me I'll go through my list here. It looks like it's in alphabetical order. So Anne-Marie, could you please introduce yourself and talk a little bit about what you do and your business?
Right, sure. My name is Anne-Marie Cantrell, and my business is actually located in Birdsboro. I have a company called Cucina Verde, which just means green kitchen in Italian. And I have a product-based line. I make traditionally fermented sauerkrauts that I sell at farmers markets and do some wholesale with. And then I do a lot of food education with people. So teaching people how to use food to feed their families, to nourish themselves. I work a lot with children diagnosed with autism and ADHD and different autoimmune diseases, just helping families do dietary interventions to help boost up the immune systems. And I do a lot with gut healing and hold cooking classes and workshops in person, and hopefully that will start again very soon.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks so much for being here. Buddy, go ahead and please tell us a bit about yourself.
I'm located just outside of Berks, across the county line. I'm in Schuylkill County, Southern Schuylkill County in Orgsburg. My wife and I have a health food store called Healthy Habits Natural Market. I'm a chiropractor first and foremost. That's what I'm primarily trained in. That's what my degree's in. I've certified in functional medicine. And I guess my most recent or current and near future kind of labor of love is a program we call the Group Reset. And it's at groupreset.com. And it's a 6-week kind of like a boot camp, or almost like a AA rehab, a drug rehab type style program for people that want to make major changes in their diet and lifestyle. We have weekly group meetings. We have a Facebook group. So that's what we're really focusing on. And a lot of it's around food, which is why I'm looking forward to tonight.
Awesome. Thank you. Let's see who's next here on the list. Henrietta, can you please tell the group a little bit about yourself and your business and how you help people?
Hi, good evening. My name is Henrietta Albin. I am a doctor of naturopathy in private practice for the past 23 years and a serious proponent of eat local and eat healthy, among other things, of course. And I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Let's see. Leslie, Thanks for joining us tonight. Can you tell the group a bit about what you do?
Sure. So I'm a functional nutrition practitioner, Reiki practitioner, and fitness instructor. But my passion and drive is trying to obtain optimal and peak performance in people to have a mindset shift on their lifestyle to kind of navigate through getting to the root causes of what's going on with their lifestyle, and also to basically, see things not as a quick fix and take the time to integrate new foods, new changes in exercise, and decluttering the environmental triggers that are around you with the EMFs, the toxic things that you might have in your home that you're not aware of, to try to keep things at bay so your estrogen doesn't start peaking, and just trying to keep a balanced lifestyle.
Great, thanks for being here. Molly, good to see you here tonight. Can you please tell the group a bit about yourself?
Correct. Can you hear me?
Yep, there you are.
So Molly Kaufman from Be Well Living, formerly Be Well Yoga, originated yoga therapy. I'm a certified yoga therapist, a registered yoga teacher, fitness and wellness coach, Reiki practitioner, and originally started with individual yoga therapy and branched off a bit with yoga therapy for individuals with chronic pain, and also Ayurveda specialist, practitioner, and homesteading. So my specialty is Ayurveda and self-sufficient living, homesteading here in Moton. We have a farmette, and I'm sure I can keep going on, but
That's great. Thank
that
you.
sums it up. Thanks.
Awesome. Let's see. Freya, can you please talk a little bit about what you do and how you help people? You're still muted. Gotta unmute yourself. Hold on, maybe I can unmute.
Yep. Can you hear me now?
There you are.
Okay. I'm Freya Osting, and I'm a functional nutritional therapist. I have an office in Wyomissing, and I work with clients individually at my office, and I also run a lot of group programs. They're usually 5-week group programs where we follow an anti-inflammatory diet. We meet once a week also. And I have a new program called Mind Body Renewal, and that kind of combines the dietary aspects with following practices for rebalancing the nervous system. That's it.
Awesome. Sherry, if you don't mind sharing a bit about yourself with the group, please.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. My name is Sherry Matthews. I'm a registered nurse. My business is called Wellness Potential, and I am a certified holistic nurse coach and Reiki practitioner. And I do individual coaching for people who want to make changes to a healthier lifestyle. And I recently have become interested in a lot of energy work and energy group coaching. And I love, my compassion is healthcare practitioners and caretakers, and helping them to take care of themselves and boost their self-care practices.
Awesome. Thank you.
Among other things.
Yes, lots. Tiffany, thanks for joining us again tonight. Can you talk a bit about your business and your specialties?
Hey. Hi, everyone. Yes, thank you for having me. My name is Tiffany. I'm owner at Embark Herbals, and that's over in Moton, Pennsylvania. And so at my herbal business, I do one-on-one herbal consultations and classes and workshops. And I also have a full retail apothecary with about 300 loose bulk herbs and all other kinds of products, tinctures, natural remedies. I guess overall what I'm trying to do is just bring, answer people's herbalist questions, how they can incorporate herbs into their lives, what all you can use herbs for, and and make it affordable and accessible to everyone again. So a lot of what I do is like education focused. And with the classes and workshops, I like that of trying to teach people how they can be able to take charge of their own healthcare again, if they have the education to do so, so that they can make those decisions for themselves on what they need, instead of always feeling like, just to empower people again to, be educated, to know how to make decisions like that for themselves. So I think that kind of sums it up.
Absolutely. That's a big part of what this group's trying to do, is empower people to help help them take care of themselves. And I didn't get to do this last week because I always forget. And then everyone's like, Courtney, you forgot to introduce yourself. So I'll take a couple seconds. My name's Courtney Schober. I am the education coordinator at Farmhouse Kitchen, also the program chair of Downtown Wellness Berks, and I myself am an integrative health coach. So I also help people kind of reach their health and wellness and well-being goals by taking incremental steps, and working towards a healthier lifestyle. And one of my main focuses with a lot of my clients is healthy eating habits. So I'm right at home tonight with this, so I'll probably be chiming in a little bit too, in addition to my moderator role. So I'm very happy to have all of our affiliates join us and all of our participants. So we'll get started. I have a little bit of a kind of outline to go by, but there's so much to talk about when it comes to food and health. So if the conversation, steers off of that, I'm totally fine. We can kind of go with what, where the discussion leads us. But to get started, basically just wanted to stress how much healthy eating and eating foods that are beneficial to our body can so affect our overall health. That's really going to be the main focus for tonight. So if any of you have joined us in previous Farmhouse classroom events, this is a huge focus of what we talk about. And really, this whole year when we had events, it was food as medicine. So what you put in your body makes a huge difference. What you eat matters. So maybe the first thing I wanted to touch on, which is another subject that we definitely covered in depth, but we'll touch on it again tonight because it is so huge, and I want to remind people and help people that don't necessarily learn or know much about it, to get them a little bit of a one-on-one on gut health support. So why treating the good bacteria and the bacteria in our body is so important to our immunity and to how our hormones interact and how our body behaves. So because she was pretty much the head of that topic, I'm gonna ask Henrietta to start, just to give a little 101 on that topic and kind of what it means to overall health. If you don't mind starting that, Henrietta, please.
I don't mind, and thank you for the opportunity. Over the last 12, 15 years, the role of the microbiome with regard to overall immunity and health and its direct connection to healthy foods and an ability to digest and absorb and metabolize nutrients has become the paramount topic for most of us. I mean, there isn't an area of our bodies that is not affected by how well our microbiome works. And having said that, we know that lots of the healthy hormones are made in the gut and sent up to the brain. So serotonin, dopamine, I'm speaking of the behavioral hormones, brain chemicals. The other piece that many people do misunderstand is how essential healthy fats are for the microbiome. And that the proper microbial balance in the gut is what makes us healthy. So I think we could easily say as an overall view of it, and I'm sure that Anne-Marie, Freya, and all you others, including you, Courtney, agree, that it really, really is important that we have a wide diversity of healthy foods, that the healthy foods really are as healthy and from nutritious soil as we can make it, and that ultimately that is where our cravings come from, where our satiation comes from, where our health comes from, how well we feel if we have allergies or frequent colds and all of this. And just in closing this particular bit in regard to the current health crises, this is the most misunderstood issue of our times. And it is, in my opinion, and that is just my opinion, purposely misunderstood. It is a huge issue of misunderstood science, misinterpreted science, and since we're all here holistic and functional, and naturopathy is the oldest functional medicine practice, we know what we know. So when people ask me about it, I say, I think I know too much. So I am not going to panic. So I think, is that a good enough intro?
No, that's
Yeah.
great. Freya, do you mind adding on to that, tacking on to that, please? Oh, gotta unmute. There you go.
Yeah, I think Henrietta, everything she said was really accurate. But I mean, in terms of immunity in particular, I mean, our immune system literally evolved with our microbiome. I mean, they're just so intimately interconnected. So I feel, I don't know quite where this is going, but just in terms of health, and being resistant against disease. I mean, that's what our immune system is there for. It's designed to protect us, and it can't do that without the immune system. I mean, it's literally, the immune system is kind of like our neighborhood watch in our intestines. So it's just of major significance. And once again, I do agree with Henrietta. It's just often kind of overlooked and not brought up. And I agree with her also. It's all about diversity. Health is related to the diversity of your microbiome. And once you start to lack diversity in your microbiome, that's when you get, species, more of the less beneficial species. It's just kind of mirrored in nature. Once species die off and you start to lose the diversity, that's when invasive species come in that are destructive, and they have a place to go, and the whole ecosystem doesn't function as well.
Great. No, look, that's, yeah. No, I just like hearing everyone's kind of different take on it. Anne Marie, I know this is a topic that's also near and dear to your heart, producing probiotic products for people. Do you mind giving your 2 cents on the subject?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you. I'd love to. The first thing that struck me, Henrietta, when you were talking was, the science behind all of this. And I think the science, what has predominated the science, is basically this germ theory for wellness and immunity, that we get sick because of something coming in and attacking us. And so we ourselves are on the fight. I'm going to sanitize my hands every 5 seconds after I touch this, because we're so afraid of those germs. And I think, what we're moving into and what we're seeing now is more of this terrain theory. It's not the germ, it's our terrain, and our terrain really is our microbiome, and that balance of the microbiota and all of the bacteria that we have. So with knowing that, I feel like we can live our lives more empowered, because we're taking care of our own terrain, and we do that through our food choices, the diversity of the foods that we eat that are going to be right for us, because not every food that might be good for a microbiome is going to be right for every person, but understanding how quickly too that, our gut lining heals, and that microbiome can change and the bacteria change depending on what we put in there, I find is really, really empowering. And we live in such an area where we have such access to these really nutrient dense foods with our small farmers growing on, using regenerative agricultural practices, where our soil is better, so our vegetables are better. And for me, it really boils down to that whole healthy, it used to be healthy food, healthy people, but it goes really healthy soil equals healthy people. So
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't, it's like a chain reaction kind of thing, and it goes layers. So if you have really great nutrient dense soil, and then even the animals that eat the plants that are grown out of really nutrient dense soil, it's all connected. Um, does does anybody else have anything to add to just some insight into kind of gut health? Go ahead, Tiffany.
Yeah, my son's here. I'm sorry. I have
It's
three kids.
okay.
So yeah, there are herbs that can help. I think a lot of people really, a lot of people are familiar with knowing that we can have yogurt or supplements or other fermented foods, but there are herbs that can also help restore a healthy gut biome. Like burdock root is a great example. It has inulin, a prebiotic. Fructo-oligosaccharides that can help build and stimulate a healthy gut biome. And there's some other herbs as well.
Yeah, thank you. No, that's always good. Thank you. I always love hearing the herbal aspect of it too, because it's kind of one of those things that people they're not even aware that much of the food aspect, let alone some of the herbal that helping that could happen. Um, Anybody else on this? And otherwise we might
I
move
do.
on.
I do.
Anybody else on gut health? Oh, go ahead, Leslie.
Yeah, so I guess I try to back it up to trying to educate people in the sense of that they never figure the direct correlation with 500 million nerve cells found in your gut, and there's 20 types of neurons that includes the mechanical and chemical sensing. So, when you try to make that merging, those two, critical factors with that direct connection. I think it's just really educating and getting people in a mindset of, just like you're going to possibly college and pursuing a degree and moving up the ranks, that didn't take a week, that took years. So I think that is really, the key critical factor is just trying to get people to sit in another place with their life, to really embrace it and just say, this is a journey. And that's what I find, just sitting with that person and letting them be their hero in this journey instead of a number, with all the doctors out there, just here, take that pill, here, take this, and just taking time, because everybody's different. Everybody is gauged differently in what they're going to absorb. So you don't want to give them TMI. And it's just eliminating things, just slowly and letting them embrace like a new norm with the brain fog, the fatigue, all of that, as we all know, are so interconnected. So that's what I wanted to just put out there.
No, that's great. It's good to remind everyone that like people have their own health journey, that or their own path that they're taking, and everyone has their own individual story and lots of complicated things that go along with it. Tiffany, did you have something else to add?
Yeah, I just thought about something else too. I get a lot of questions about how to take the probiotics when they're taking supplements. I like to let people know that, these are living things. So once you introduce them into your system, they will multiply and thrive. So what I usually suggest people do is buy a few different varieties of probiotics, either all at once and then rotate them each day, or buy one kind and just finish one bottle. You don't need to keep taking this. In fact, there's some evidence that it's not good to keep taking these indefinitely, and just rotate through them, introduce them into your system. And then you don't need to continue unless you've taken an antibiotic or had a lot of sugar, can kill off some of the good bacteria, or been through really stressful situations. Then you may want to reconsider taking another round of them again.
Stepping it up again. Yeah, it's good to remember that there's so many factors that affect that bacteria in our gut and in the rest of our body. Stress being one of them, yes, and what we eat. And it's a good reminder to, yes, I think we mentioned this last week about antibiotics, that you know, when you talk about this bacteria that's living in your gut, it's kind of and Leslie, you touched on it, but I do love the idea of it not just thinking of them as these tiny little bugs that are doing this amazing work, which they are, but they're sending all these electrical signals. Like there are a lot of people call it your second brain, your gut microbiome. There's so much information being passed from that area of your body to other places that make all these other things work. It's pretty fascinating, and I think we're learning more about it, and it's super interesting. Okay. Well, if anyone has anything else, we can always invert it later. But I wanted to talk a little bit, and we talked a bit about this last week, but I wanted to touch more on it in the aspect of food and eating habits. But we talked a lot about inflammation in the body and how that is such a precursor to essentially everything negative that can happen in our body. We talked about it. Yes, it can be positive to some extent, but when it gets out of hand or is more consistent, it has detrimental effects. So I'd love to hear from some of you, maybe some tips or some input on how we can eat to quell that inflammation. So essentially, what does an anti-inflammatory eating style look like? Or maybe what are some of the red flag items to watch out for people that are kind of guaranteed to inflame things? We can go or whoever wants to chime in can go ahead and start that conversation. Go ahead, Leslie.
So you want to try to take out the non-negotiables, like the gluten, dairy, sugars, refined sugars. And that's where you still have to back it up, re-educate. A lot of people are like, well, sugar is a sugar. No, there's a difference, because refined sugar, there's a process that takes place that depletes all the nutrients. Raw sugar, there's all different varieties of the coconut sugar, coconut palm. So, that before it gets to an acute illness is really where you want to back it up, clear the muddy waters, and start simple, maybe starting with the refined sugars. See how they feel. Like, wow, my head feels clear now, instead of just zocking them with 3 different areas of what am I going to eat. And that's where some people, they need to literally go to a supermarket with me, their favorite supermarket, walk down the aisles, educate them, taking a food mood poop journal that I have. So your mood and what you're eating. Oh, wow, I get like brain fog after eating this. And that's the unveiling of, clarity of, wow, I didn't realize all these years it's related to what I'm eating. So sometimes I take those baby steps with people, and I'll switch out their cereals that they love that's full of sugar. And I say, you start with educating yourself, start reading labels, but I know for me, it took 20 years to really integrate this all with my family, with my 3 boys. And that's how it started years ago to where we are. But people just, get a little overwhelmed with all of that. So
Absolutely. It's all about those incremental changes, right? And I think a big part of starting to make changes is to figure out where you're at now. So yeah, I think keeping a food journal of what you're eating, just to be aware of it, as well as any symptoms that pop up when you're eating certain things, is a great start for people that don't necessarily know where to start. Anybody else want to chime in on kind of anti-inflammatory, or just kind of getting started on eating having healthier eating habits? Go ahead, Henrietta.
I give my clients a dietary chart for a week. And on there, they say what they eat, morning, noon, night, snacks, salty and savory ones, how often and how clear their pee is, how they poop, their mood, their sleep, exercise. That lets me actually gauge from day to day just how they eliminate. And that is especially true when someone comes with maybe gut dysbiosis, but also other imbalances. And of course, the gut dysbiosis leads to inflammation. I mean, that all is connected. And food allergies or food intolerances, as they're most often turn out to be, are connected to the lack of the proper bacterial microbiome composition. And so I agree with Leslie, you have to go slow. And so for me, I look at how they're eating and what they're doing. And rather than replacing one with another, I make some suggestions where they can really feel well. So take out one thing for the next 2 weeks and see how you feel. Sugar is a great one, but a lot of people who come to me already know that sugar isn't cool, so they either don't talk about it, or I get to glean from their carb intake on the dietary chart and their actual snack intake, just how much sugar they're actually making. And since the body is holistic and the whole system is holistic, you can tell when I combine it with their intake chart, it is easy for me to see, when somebody has gut issues, they have inflammation in many different areas. But if somebody just, for example, has sore shoulders or recurring migraines or things like that, well, then there is usually a specific issue underlying all of this. And at that point, I go back to the hormones, like just where are you in your hormone cycle and how is that connected? And again, like I said in my first comments, healthy cholesterol is actually really important because it fights inflammation. And I'd like to say something here about how the medical system looks at cholesterol. Cholesterol is a natural byproduct of our body. It is actually a healing process that occurs in the arteries to try to flush out the plaque, to try to flush out the toxins that are in there. And in so doing, and the body makes cholesterol all the time, the brain takes the most of it, and all our hormones are made from cholesterol, certainly the reproductive hormones. And so for us to take statin drugs is the worst thing we can absolutely do. So just saying, if you have anyone who's on statin drugs, it's a good idea to discuss this with them. Cholesterol is essential. Healthy fats are essential. Of course, that also means that your liver and gallbladder ought to be in functional order so that the bile can break down the fats in the digestive process. So having said all that, a liver cleanse once or twice a year is always a great idea.
Freya, do you mind speaking a bit? I know you do your sugar restart. So how do you approach helping people change their eating habits? You muted again. It's okay.
Yeah, sorry.
It's okay.
I have a little bit of a more hardcore approach with the group programs and also with clients. I mean, I basically give them a food list. They're all 5-week programs for the most part, unless I'm working with somebody on specific health concerns. But I give them a food list the first week, and we go over it in great detail. And it's what I consider an anti-inflammatory, nutrient-dense diet, all whole foods, nothing processed. It's gluten-free. Dairy is optional, although it's very limited if you are going to have it. And so they get that the first week, and then they have a week to prepare. I share recipes, lots of recipes, snack ideas, things like that. And a lot of people, I think, feel kind of apprehensive and bewildered the first week, but it's like I said, a guided, structured, and supported program. So, and we meet once a week. So I just get them through it. It's kind of like pulling the Band-Aid off. But by the end of the program, I see really great results in pretty much everybody. So, and I track symptoms. We do symptom testing the first week and symptom testing the last week. And it kind of blows me away every time how much people's symptom burden or symptom complaints go down. Like the group that I'm running now, I'm getting them back and the symptoms are down about 60%, 60 to 70%, which is just amazing to me. And all the time, how quickly the body will heal itself if it's given the appropriate nutrients, and you're taking away the junk that's impeding it from functioning the way it should function. So
absolutely.
yeah,
that's a great point. Buddy, do you want to chime in on how, I know you have a program as well. How do you go about it? I think it's interesting to hear everybody's kind of different approach, because different people will respond differently. You know, some people are better with that rip off the Band-Aid, really extreme in your face, and other people kind of have to ease into it. So what's your take on the changing of the habits when it comes to eating?
Sure. Yeah, I'm glad she changed course there because I didn't want to have to be the first contrarian. But there's definitely different approaches. And first of all, the person has to know themselves. We have to know our clients, our patients. Some people won't be able to make that big change, but by in general rule for me is to rip the Band-Aid off and to make big changes all at once. My reasoning is it's been successful for me over the years, first of all. But when someone's ready and motivated to make the change, jump on that, because people don't stay motivated for long. And by making the big changes all of a sudden, yeah, the first week is hell. So for people watching that are interested in making changes, or maybe you started to make changes and don't feel good, don't worry, get through that, because then within a relatively short period of time, so they only have to stay motivated for maybe 5 to 8 days. Once they get through the 5 to 8 days, they see huge changes. They see 10-pound weight loss. They see brain fog go. They see a lot of changes up front. Now that really motivates them to continue on versus removing maybe 1 or 2 things at a time. Now, going back to someone mentioned about the family, you're not 9 times out of 10, you're not gonna get your family to go cold turkey like that. But for the individual, yeah, I absolutely love just focusing on what they can eat, give them a specific list, basically meats, fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds. Everything else not in the list, don't even ask about it because it's not in the program. If you want to go off it, it's fine with us, but you're gonna interfere with your results. So yeah, I'm a big fan of the big changes and big results early on.
Anne Marie, what about you? How do you help your clients when it comes to changing the way they eat?
So it really depends. So in the work that I do with children, it is a very much a baby step approach, because, you know, you take all this stuff out of a kid's world and, you know, parents are gonna start climbing the wall. So for me, it's also a lot of education about when something is removed, like we're taking out the gluten or we're taking out the sugar, something has to be replaced. And it's not necessarily you're taking out gluten and replacing gluten-free. It's removing and then renourishing. So we're taking this out, and now we're going to learn how to cook our rice in, you know, a really nourishing bone broth instead, right? Trying to get more nutrients in something that particularly the child is already eating. So how do you take that food and up the nutritional qualities of it? And then when I work more with adults, for me, it really, like, I don't have programs, and people don't come to me with, you know, really huge issues, so they will get referred out. But for me, it's really about reconnecting people with their intuition, because their bodies know, I think our bodies know what we need. But we just have stopped listening to that because we're hearing all this conflicting information. And until we go down deep inside, people can tell us, you know, all of these things, and it might not be right for us. So for me, it's really about connecting to the intuition and having that paradigm shift from deprivation to abundance, you know, and really teaching people, like, no, there is an abundance of food that you can eat. Just because you're not eating gluten and dairy, there's all of this stuff. And how do you source it? How do you cook it? How do you feel satisfied? You know, that's really my my approach.
Thanks. Yeah, I agree with that a lot. I'm in the same field as you, as far as most of the clients I help and the people I help aren't really that sick already. Like, they might want to lose a few pounds, or maybe have pre-diabetes or some hypertension and just want to eat healthier in general. So I think that it's good to point out that everyone here tonight helps people at kind of different stages of dis-ease, you know, or if they're being preventive about it. I am totally with you as far as those incremental changes. I like thinking about it as crowding in the good stuff. And like you said, like, take something that they're used to, like maybe there's an old family recipe, and then we'll look at that and healthify it, and maybe substitute a couple of different ingredients that are a little more nourishing and a little more nutrient dense. Or if they're a pasta lover, maybe we'll we'll invest in a zoodler and we'll spiralize some zucchini and mix that in with half pasta instead of having, eating a whole pound of pasta by yourself. So there's just so many different angles to take. But I'm with you. If it's there's something where you're just trying to feel better and change those habits, it's really helpful to have somebody to kind of just give suggestions. And there's so much out there. Um, Anybody else want to talk about how they help their clients or patients kind of change the way they think about eating? And I think that's it too. It's changing the way you think about eating. That's really what it's about. Molly, do you have something?
Courtney, yes, in Ayurveda nutrition, we
Yes,
look
please.
at,
I would love to
yeah,
hear Ayurvedic.
so
Yes.
looking at the elements, looking at constitutions, and also seasonal eating.
Yeah.
What are we eating not only, seasonally, but during the day, like what time of day, where's our largest meal? So educating seasonal nutrition, seasonal foods, and when should we be eating those foods? And in this culture we have a tendency to eat a large dinner, where our largest meal should really be at noon, where the sun is the highest and our metabolism is revved up and ready to burn what needs to be burned and digest and nourish what needs to be. So looking at going back to the elements, going back to tastes, and also incorporating all of the 6 tastes in each meal, which is really challenging.
It's hard to
But
do.
it is hard to do, but it's a fun game too that I can incorporate into my students' nutritional lifestyle.
Can you give us an example maybe of like just one meal that you could talk about some of the different tastes just to kind of get let the
So
audience know a little bit what you're talking about.
we can look at a Thanksgiving meal.
Okay.
I think I have a Thanksgiving meal here with all the 6 tastes.
Just as a refresher for people, because I think it's pretty interesting to remember that about, what are you actually tasting? And I think that's a big thing too. When you are eating healthier and more nutritious foods, you're retraining your palate completely. When you're
It's really
stepping
thinking
away.
outside the box.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's thinking outside the box, and not, to not forget about, Tiffany was saying about herbs. You know, think about incorporating your not only culinary arts herbs, but your medicinal herbs into our edible flowers. When's the last time that you tossed, I had a salad today and tossed parsley into it and wilted my greens. So I'm trying to look to find, I have somewhere in my notes. Here we go. So a Thanksgiving dinner with, I'm not very prepared.
Sorry, I kind of
I have somewhere
put you on the
a
spot.
Thanksgiving dinner with all 6. I don't know. I could come back to it.
Okay. we
But
can talk about it again. Does anybody else have any input on kind of?
I could hearing everyone talk about like the inflammation and hearing gluten come up a lot too.
Yeah.
It also just made me think of a lot of times if someone has had inflammation because they've had a gluten allergy that has damaged the mucosal lining, I'll incorporate mucilaginous herbs because that heals and seals the gut mucosa, because it's kind of getting to the root of the inflammation. So sure, there's anti-inflammatory foods and herbs, but if you haven't healed and sealed the gut mucosa, then those toxins and undigested food particles are just going to keep leaking out and causing problems. And so it never hurts to help expedite the process, give your body what it needs to help it to heal itself. And those mucilaginous herbs, those demulcent herbs, kind of put a coating over the gut mucosa. So it kind of gives it, it's soothing to it, and it also gives it time to heal without having to deal with the agitations of our digestive system. And Schisandra berry has all 5 flavors.
Whoa, there's a berry that has all 5?
Yep.
Where does that grow? I'm curious.
Yeah.
It's Chinese. So now I tried to grow it around here this year. I didn't have any success. I'll try again, but
Yeah, it's hard. That's one of the kind of challenges sometimes, especially with herbs, right? Like there's plenty of really wonderful native herbs, but a lot of the things that we might need to help us might not grow around here. So it's interesting. Molly, did you find your notes? No? Okay, no problem. Let's
I can
see.
No, I didn't.
Oh, Sherry, go ahead. You have something to add?
just a little bit.
Sure.
I just wanted to say that everything that everybody said is really great. And I think it was Leslie that mentioned about how food your body will talk to you, and as you are changing what you're eating, you should just keep that body awareness, and also using all of your senses, not just taste. There's the smell, there's touch, there's texture, everything that you can use with your senses that nourishes your body. In our holistic nursing, I have a exercise that's called Nourishing Through the Senses, where we go through how we nourish our body other ways, not just eating. Like, what else do you do that nourishes your body? So just a little bit of the other things that you can think about besides just food in nourishing.
No, absolutely. And Leslie mentioned this too. And I was thinking it when you were saying it, it can basically, you can use eating as a mindfulness activity. So mindful eating, and I know Anne Marie mentioned intuitive eating, which is essentially just listening to your body. What does it need? And that takes time. Sometimes you have to cut through. There's a lot of if you're not practice, it's like another practice, it's a muscle that you tone. So it takes some time to figure that out for yourself. But no, that's a really good point. And I wanted to bring that up too. There's more to choosing foods than just choosing foods. It's a lot more complicated than that. Even if you are learning what is good for you and what is nutrient dense and what is nourishing to your body, actually making the choices can be really difficult because of the ties to your emotions and to your heritage and to memories and nostalgia. Does anybody want to chime in on that? Just kind of those, like, as we're talking about the other aspects of choosing foods.
Emotional eating is a huge issue, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, we all have clients and we know it from ourselves. For me, gluten, by the time I was, many decades later, I found out that gluten actually makes me sad because of the way our dinner table worked during certain years of my childhood. And so eating was a safe place to be. But it was obviously connected to all those old world flavors. While healthy, nobody else ate differently. It was not good for me personally. So emotional eating is very interesting. And then over the years, I noticed that when I have a craving for gluten or a craving for gluten and butter and cheese on a sandwich and crusty bread, and we all know Anna's bread, right? It doesn't matter how many probiotics from Anne Marie I shove in there with it. Within 2 days, I produce an enormous amount of mucus and I cry a lot. So that hasn't happened in a while because I don't let it go there anymore because it's now my body is so in tune. That's the one thing about emotional eating. People will find comfort in that. And even though, there was Overeaters Anonymous and they touched on this a lot, people don't realize, in fact, that they are almost always emotional eating. They do a lot of it. It is the tradition at holidays. It is how we meet each other across the table, And just as an aside to that, one more of the aspects of how we notice flavors or how we use them is essential oils, right? And so, and I know that both Tiffany and Molly have ideas on, and I use a lot of Ayurvedic flavors actually, Molly, in my cooking, because just in Chinese medicine, you can use dong quai for hormone issues. Put it in the soup. You can actually buy a dong quai root in Chinatown, or you can order it and it comes flatly sliced. And what you can get with that, it's so cool. You put that in a vegetarian soup, it tastes like a ham hock because it puts that slightly smoky flavor in there. And I love, obviously, I love using turmeric and all of that. And Tiffany, the dried herbs of everything and the oils that go with it. There are people who use essential oil of basil for their Italian sauce. So I'm stepping back. I'm just saying the whole thing is so lush in the taste buds. You just want to go and feel it.
Yeah, and also Leslie mentioned, and Leslie, if you want to talk about this, you can, kind of circling back to that mindfulness. You absolutely, it's always good to mention that people attend, and typically, number one, they're not even paying attention to what they're putting in their mouth, let alone taking the time to chew it, but eating slowly and, remembering that chewing is actually part of the digestive system. Like we have to masticate that so that we have an easier time digesting it. So just kind of taking pause and slowing down, I think, is a great reminder. And hold on, there's a couple of messages here. I want to kind of filter them out. Oh, Buddy, good call. I mean, that we could have a whole nother panel about kind of how food companies are, how you said, hijacking our genetically driven desire for easy calories. I think Doritos is a good example. Like they actually, I forget one of the documentaries, I forget, but they took you to like where they produce these chips, right? And everything from the flavors that are manufactured to make us want more, it makes our brains want more, to like exactly how crunchy it is. They use like machines specifically to like figure out the exact pressure it takes to get that crunch that we need when we're stressed out. It's crazy. Does anybody have anything to add to that as far as some of the, I know one of the other examples sometimes I give is in the grocery store. If you're in the cereal aisle and you're taking your kids through the cereal aisle, guess what's directly behind the cereal? The candy. In grocery stores, marketing, the way they set up the store, the end caps, everything is so planned out. It's so psychological. Anybody have anything to add to that? It just makes it harder for us. It kind of puts us behind the gates. We get tripped up by a lot of that stuff.
And
I was wondering if, sorry. Buddy and Anne-Marie, could you speak more to the tongue tie? Because I just heard about this, because I don't usually work with children, but I just heard about this and it shocked everything out of me. I mean, I thought that was horrible. So can you both talk about that?
Oh, I'm Kristen. I actually own Burke's MyoSpot. I'm a myofunctional therapist. I'm also a dental hygienist and a certified school dental hygienist as well. But when I was pregnant with my son, I actually took a course on myofunctional therapy. And then once my son was born, went down the rabbit hole because I had breastfeeding issues. And that's where it first starts. If you can find it in a child and get it treated early, they're less likely to have all these issues later in life. So if you're not eating and swallowing properly, you're gonna end up, you possibly could have acid reflux because your tongue isn't sealing off when you swallow. So as a myofunctional therapist, I work with the oral rest posture. So if the tongue is tied, your tongue isn't up in the roof of your mouth and it doesn't expand the palate to the appropriate shape. And then you're looking at needing braces because your mouth is narrow, you have a high palate, you have allergies because you have a high palate because the roof of the mouth is the floor of the nose. So it has a lot of impacts. The lingual frenum, which is underneath the tongue, is actually connected into the myocardium of the heart. So a lot of people with tongue ties will have a forward head posture. and they can't stand up properly because their body's pulling them tighter. So it's a lot with the fashion, working with massage therapists, chiropractors. So it's a multidisciplinary approach.
Thanks, Kristen. Thank you so much for your input. I appreciate that.
It's good to have you with us. It's good for referrals. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Anne-Marie, did you have anything else to add to that?
No, I think it's so fascinating. My experience mostly with that was with real young infants and it impacting breastfeeding and the bonding and stress and pain stuff. But then also as children grow older, just the psychological impact of the feeding experience not being pleasurable. So then you have the kids who become the picky eaters or the problem eaters, and that's kind of what I deal with on that level. But I did have a comment just back to the mindful eating topic, that I really think that, you know, digestion begins with our mind even before it hits any of our other senses, right? So it's just, we think about our favorite childhood food and we begin to salivate because that experience, you know, if it was a good one. And I, you know, that's a lot of the work that I do with people too, is understanding the whole stress response, you know, with food. And so when you're dealing with people who are doing a lot of food restricting, it can become so stressful that it's hard to go out, you know, with friends, and you're so stressed thinking, well, I can't eat this, I can't eat this, I can't eat that, I can't eat that. And so, you know, you're more contracted at that point. So for me, and it was a lesson, you know, too, that I personally needed to learn as I was going through my stuff, is it served me so much better if I went out with this attitude of joy and love and gratitude for the food that was presented to me, even though I knew it was GMO, I knew it had canola oil in it, I knew this, I knew that, but I was sharing it with people that I loved. So for me, the nourishment was so much fuller because of that. And I was much more nourished eating that food than if I just had, you know, dried lettuce with no dressing on it. You know?
I like that idea a lot. It's about that, right? The attitude you have when you're nourishing yourself sometimes can even overpower a little bit the actual physical nutrients that are in that dish. It's really interesting the way our brains work that way sometimes, and I'm sure there's probably some wormholes of studies that can show, you know, how our brain affects that. It's really interesting. No, thank you. That's great. And that's a good point too about just, I don't even like using, I mean, I've specifically avoided tonight and always just using the word diet because in our culture over you know decades it's such a dirty thing because of that, because they're not sustainable, many of them, and you know, coming from the background of studying it, the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, we just learned about so many different dietary theories. And yeah, some of them have some good points and some of them are ridiculous. And it goes to that point. I kind of agree with in the mindset of when you are complete, like unless you have a medical, like if you have celiac, you can't eat gluten because you know you're it's really bad for you. But when it comes to just eating healthier, it really, you know, it's hard to just cut out complete parts of the plate when you talk about it, like whether it be meat for some people, and you kind of just, it takes a long time to figure out what that proportion looks like for you. So can you guys speak to that a little bit about almost, it's the idea of kind of rethinking your plate, you know, when we're told by the USDA that it's supposed to look a certain way, and each meal, it's kind of like, what does a meal look like? You know, and even the thought of breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and what each of those meals is supposed to be like. You're allowed to have a salad for breakfast if you want, and you can have eggs for dinner if you want, you know. So do you guys want to speak a little bit about kind of deconstructing the conventional kind of box that we put around standard nutrition and what a meal looks like?
Oh, I was going to say something.
Sure.
So as we all know, like bioindividuality. So everybody, you know, everybody wants to jump on the bandwagon to do the, certain diets, the paleo, but not everybody is going to really thrive on that. They might have gaps, they might have issues that they should not be strictly paleo. So we try to incorporate and create a designed program for each person, which I think is really, key. So, just mixing the protein, the fats, uh, fibers, and getting a balanced meal. And like you said, yeah, we're all geared to, oh my gosh, well, you only should have eggs in the morning, not at night, or you could only have meat at night, not in the morning. So it's all with cultural shifts too. So that's what I wanted to interject. But I also, when you guys want to circle back, I have a very interesting podcast about allulose, and this Myra Desi, who is known for her ingredients. She's called the ingredient guru. And you can find allulose, the oses we always thought was really healthy, but you can find that in so many protein bars and paleo foods that are not good for you. So if you ever get a chance, Andrea Nakayama founded the school, Functional Nutrition Labs, where I got my certifications 2.5 years ago. And she has a 15-minute podcast. And this was a very interesting podcast, number 175, if you have an opportunity. So
Leslie, do you think you could find like a link, or at least type it in the chat so that we have that info for people?
yeah, okay.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Anybody else want to kind of speak to that a bit as far as
I kind of wanted to bring up the topic of family, like feeding a family, while we're on the topic of, individuality. So what does that look like? Like Molly with the Ayurvedic foods, like eating for your type, the Kapha, Vata. My family's diverse. Like my daughter's definitely a Kapha, I'm a Vata dominant. So one thing that we can do, and it does take kind of retraining how you think about preparing a meal and doing your grocery shopping, but to come up with meals where you can prepare something that'll last several days, keep it in the fridge, but it's a variety of things, and then set it all out on the like kind of like the way that we make tacos, and you can pick your toppings. So I like to do that. You can make your staple foods, your base foods, your grains and your vegetables, and then let everyone pick and choose what kind of foods they're drawn to or that their body needs. And, I teach my kids as well as my clients too, like this is what you need. Like in the winter time, you need more root vegetables and more moistening herbs, because the winter time we get more drying and all of our energy kind of turns inward. So we need to nourish that, balance the dryness out with the more moisturizing foods and herbs. And put a variety out there for kids to try. And when it's not just put right in front of them on their plate, like here, you eat this, but it's just kind of where they can select something on their own to try. A lot of times they're more open to trying some different foods. So that's just one way, because I have 3 kids, I have 4 stepkids. So we have a big family, and trying to, where I prefer more vegetarian, where we have some meat eater preferences in the family. Everyone has their own preferences and their body's own needs, like their own protein demands. So that's kind of how we do it in our household. And when those questions come up with clients, that's what I suggest to do, because otherwise, you can't make a meal that's one size fits all when you have a large family like that. So.
Well, that's a great point. And there are a lot of meals like that you can kind of do that build your own kind of thing. Yeah, tacos is a good way to do that with all the different toppings, and everyone can kind of choose their own. That's a great point. And I know too, on the Ayurvedic side of things, I know our style of eating in this household, I do a lot of kind of almost the opposite of that. Well, it's just me and Mark, so me and my husband. So, and he'll eat pretty much anything I put in front of him. So I'm very lucky, because I know it comes up a lot when there's families involved, and usually, not always, but usually the mom is the one that's kind of on the course of trying to get everyone to eat healthier, or trying to eat healthier themselves. And it just seems not fair and very inefficient to try to have to cook meals for everyone. I can understand how much of a challenge that would be. But we love doing kind of one pot meals. So we do a lot of stir fries, um, and we do a lot of taco nights, and just try to fit as many great nourishing foods into one dish as possible. Um, so uh, there's lots of ways to go about it. Does anybody else want to kind of talk about a little bit how you eat yourself, or how your family eats, or how you can kind of incorporate some of the things we've talked about tonight into the way that you actually prepare your meals?
I like the idea that Tiffany was saying about the taco bar, and that's what I was thinking about, having, you know, very individualized. And it's just my husband and I, and again, Courtney, I'm blessed to, he'll eat, you know, Scott will eat anything I put in front of him, but also being mindful of, you know, him being kapha and me being pitta. It's just, I can't have pungent and he can. So being mindful of like putting the spices on the side, you know, and that doesn't mean spice as in, you know, just not spice as in spicy and pungent, but also the different tastes on the side, and having a bit of like that taco bar and picking and choosing. And the one pot meals too are really you know, easy and convenient for food prepping.
And we do a lot, and you kind of talked about food on the topic of food prepping, like Tiffany said. I think, especially for families, to do a lot of prep work ahead of time. And I know it's worked for a lot of my clients. It's not typically my personal style, but I know it's worked for a lot of people, where you maybe pick a whole grain and just make a big batch of it. Maybe do like 2 trays of roasted veggies cut up with maybe a little bit of olive oil, maybe even dry, however you want to do it. And then maybe make a couple of, not just for salad dressings. I know we did that. So maybe you have some vinegar base with maybe a little oil, or maybe you use some fruit juice to just make a flavorful sauce. Maybe you throw some Ayurvedic spices in there. Maybe you get like a turmeric or some warm spices, like kind of Indian style, with some cinnamon and some cardamom and maybe some gram masala or something. So, you know, just being very creative with those flavors. And if you just have the base of maybe the grain, the root veggies, and some beautiful greens, and then you have them separated, and then you have this sauce. Maybe you have 2 or 3 different flavors of sauce that are different, kind of inspired by different flavors, and then you can mix and match them. So that's another way you can maybe utilize that, kind of build your own idea with the family. And you know, you can go off the rails a little. It doesn't always have to be rice. You know, maybe you can experiment with some whole grains. If you are trying to cut gluten, there's plenty of really wonderful gluten-free grains. We just did some toasted millet the other night with a green salad, and that was really great. So trying new things is always great. And you know, you can experiment and figure out what people like in the family. Anybody else want to share some personal cooking stories or tips?
I always make sure I have certain, oh, sorry, Molly. I'm usually try to make sure that I have garlic on hand, shallots, lemon and lime, definitely a good olive oil and Celtic sea salt. And then of course the spices, depending on what I make. It is amazing what you can do with stir fries and just sauteing things by sprinkling a little bit of lemon at the end. And then maybe if you have some ghee that you put over the still warm vegetables. So it really gives the flavor, and it's so simple. It's so easy. And personally, I do carbs, but they tend to go to root vegetables, and well, sweet potato is one too, especially at this time. And then soups. I love making soups, and I make, you know, whatever you can make. Now, the microbiome that we discussed early on really loves inulin as a fiber, and inulin capsules are not half as effective as if you eat, inulin is in artichokes, it's in leeks, it's in jicama. And with these 3, you can do all sorts of foods with it. And I have found my love affair again with artichokes this year. So I just chop up and grate up some garlic. I put a bunch of, you know, the cold pressed organic olive oil in there. And then those things, and some salt. And then those leaves just go in there and, you know, like nobody minds the garlic the next day because it's just been so delicious.
No, that's great.
Yeah.
Sorry, someone else, was it Tiff? Did you want to add
Yeah.
something?
Well, we were on the topic of food this week too. I wanted to point out, and I had said this last week too. I love this saying, you are what you eat, digest, and don't eliminate. So that's something else. It's not just the food that we're putting into our mouths, but what is our body doing with it? And if we're not processing it, then we're kind of missing the point, and we're not getting the nutrition out of it. So yes, herbs can help here too. There's different categories of herbs. There's bitters, which helps just the bitter taste alone helps stimulate the different digestive juices to get our bodies ready to break these foods down. When you're working with clients, if they have problems with gas, bloating, nausea, that kind of thing, there's herbs that are carminatives that help get rid of like gas from the intestines, angelica, fennel, chamomile, ginger, and these things a lot of people think of, herbs or an herbalist as you're taking tinctures or tea. But when it comes to food, a lot of these things that help the digestive system are also great to add, like Henrietta was saying, like add to your soups and, put on top of your salads, or put them in like a homemade dressing that you make. And so there's the bitters to help with digestion, carminatives to help with gas and bloating. Also, if people have like a sluggish liver with poor fat metabolism, artichoke is also really great for that. And then there's other herbs that are binders too, like fenugreek. So if you do have, the toxins and the waste products, until your system gets balanced out again, you can add seasonings and herbs into your food. And if you're not too creative, then yes, you could just buy a tincture of some of these herbs already blended to help get your body on track again. But fenugreek is really great. It binds the endotoxins that are in the gut. And so that without that, that leads to inflammation, and which, everything's connected. So that creates other problems with digestion and absorption, and our body's doing what it needs to do with this food. So, when it comes to food and herbs, you're looking at different bitters, carminatives, binders, things to help you detox. So let me see if there was a couple things that I wanted to mention. Different herbs that can help that can help increase the bile, production of bile, and also the release of bile, which I think is pretty common, that people have trouble metabolizing fats. So sometimes those are really important for things too, and you can incorporate that right into your meals. Absorption. So gentian and codonopsis are two really great herbs to help your body absorb things, as well as even like black pepper. So whether you're making an herbal tincture, you can put a pinch of black pepper in there, or on all your meals. So I usually, I don't like the heat from it a lot, but I'll always add a little bit both in my salads and with whatever that I'm eating, because I know it helps your body absorb other nutrients.
Yep.
And
that's a big one with turmeric too, right? I've always heard that black pepper helps you with absorption. So it's not just that, a lot of things it helps it with absorption. That's good to know. It's really good to know.
I have one more thing I wanted to add. Ginger and cayenne. So ginger warms the stomach. It's also a great aid for digestion. And I was going to ask Tiffany also to talk about warming herbs, and you just went ahead and did it. So reading my mind. Thanks, Tiffany. It's great. I use cayenne and ginger for people who feel cold a lot. Like and especially now as we're going into the season, sometimes people who are low thyroid, cold hands and feet and the tips of their noses, just to allow their stomach to be warmer, to be more digestive, build what Molly would call the Agni, right? Build the digestive fire that is within the circa 2 hours around lunch, when your main meal should go down. And that's also really lovely in teas and in soups.
That's great. Yeah. And I love too, Henrietta, you brought up, like, it doesn't have to be complicated. I think a lot of people, when they're just starting to try to eat healthier and trying new foods and things, they think they have to have these like gourmet meals, but it's really not. Like, try to figure out what you like and make it into something that you and hopefully most of your family can enjoy. But yeah, like a little lemon juice can go a long way. Or, you know, some of those homemade dressings with some fresh herbs or some dried herbs this time of year. Add some ginger, turmeric. You know, it doesn't have to be complicated. Um, I think Buddy mentioned something about, oh, he does a lot of pre-cooking in the Instapot. Did you say it was an Instapot, Buddy? What do you guys do at home?
We just have like a daily cook up where all within a few hours, you can throw something in the instant pot for about 45 minutes. You can throw a chicken in the oven and roast it an hour and a half and it's done, or 2 hours. And you can brown up some ground meat, and then we Tupperware all that for the week. And then you can use it however you want it. Like me and my wife might have like for the chicken, we might have like a spicy peanut sauce, whereas my daughter doesn't like the spice, so she'll have like a cucumber dill sauce. So you can really change it up there. And one thing, I don't know if someone said it or not, but use salt. Salt is not unhealthy, and salt makes the food taste good. That's why people that go on a diet and cook at home for the first time, usually they feel like their food's not good because they don't realize how much salt is used when people prepare it in a restaurant.
Yeah.
And unless you have specific cardiac problems or your doctor says specifically low salt, salt is actually an okay thing for us. And I'd recommend it because it does taste good and we need it.
Molly says salt can make us happy. Yeah, it's good to remember. Yeah, it is. It's part of the seasoning process and can really help a lot of foods taste really good. Anybody else want to talk a little bit about their own home cooking styles and tips? I know a lot of times people that prep, like taking a couple hours on a Sunday, for some people, I think one of the hardest parts is the planning, and they get stressed out because they have to think about what they're going to eat every single night. So a little planning can go a long way in terms of, you know, taking the time maybe once a week or twice a week just to prepare meals essentially for the rest of the week. It can really help people. It kind of, then you don't have an excuse because everything's already there. And I always talk about the importance of building a really strong and diverse pantry. You know, if you have all of your grains and maybe some canned stuff and a lot of good spices and herbs, that's really, and some good vinegars and olive oils, like that's really, you don't need much more than that. Once you have your fresh veggies and some good protein, that's really all you need.
We
So
do
when
a
you have,
lot of food prepping on the homestead. Not very Ayurvedic to reheat our food, but that way my husband and I can work all day, come home and sit down and have a healthy meal together every night. And that's really important in our marriage and our life, is to sit and spend time together over a meal. So yes, Sundays are all about meal prepping, and meal planning happens kind of constantly. You know, my husband kind of has a little bit of a joke, as though you're already thinking about the next meal, but then that way it's healthy and it's nutritious and we can enjoy it together as a family. So it's very, very important for us here on the homestead. And we grow a lot of our own food. So we're really fortunate to have access to that and to be able to say, okay, I still have, believe it or not, spinach and Swiss chard in the garden in, what is it, November 17th. So to be able to just go out there and say, okay, what are we fortunate enough to make with this? But food prepping definitely saves us throughout the week. But more importantly, it's not to have to waste our time and energy to think about it when we're rushing in the door, where we can sit and enjoy each other's company. And that warms my heart.
absolutely. Leslie said sacred Sunday, to have the table conversation at supper. So yeah, to have that Sunday meal with the family, that's such a tradition for a lot of us. And it's really meaningful to the family, not only just to nourish our body in more ways than one, and our minds and our spirits. So it's great to remember that. Go ahead, Leslie.
I just want to interject. It's funny because my father would always say, we're going to have table conversation, turn off the idiot box. This is going back in the 70s, 80s as a kid. And I find myself saying that to my family. Table conversation, we're all flying all over. But on a funny note, having 13 a 19-year-old, and a 20-year-old, 21-year-old. So the two older guys are coming home from college, and they grew up with, oh God, what rabbit food are we going to eat tonight? They go out with their friends so the 21-year-old is going to come home and detox after just turning 21. And it was like, oh my God, music to my ears. He's like, Mom, when I go back to college, I want you to get like the adaptogens, get some of the superfoods and stuff. And can you teach me how to incorporate that into my smoothie? Because everybody thinks like, what the heck is this stuff that your mother is sending you, these care packages? So it is finally trickling to the kids as they become young adults. So for anyone out there that do have older, kids, I feel like all my hard work and labor of just trying to integrate them into our way of eating and clean eating is finally paying off. So that's like a good thing. So
Thank you. And I was just going to switch to ask the questions, and we do have one from Jane. So if anyone wants to chime in about this, we talked a little bit about family stuff, but what if it's on the other side of things? And so how does someone motivate themselves to cook for one and keep it healthy? Anne Marie says, invite a friend over and cook
Find
together.
out
That's
what you
good. I
want
love
more.
that.
Find out what you want more than those foods that you crave. So if it's less pain, if it's not having diarrhea 40 times a day, if it's chronic migraines, it could be weight, it could be looking better in clothes, but that shouldn't be the primary one. So, and that's kind of what I use with alcohol in previous times. I want my career more than I want to have those drinks every night. So you kind of have to look at that, and you journal it out. What the life that you want, and the things that are missing now, and the reasons that you want to eat better, because it's not losing 10 pounds, it's not losing 30 pounds even. And if you're not crying by the time you're done journaling, keep journaling and journal every night until you start crying. And then when you find that why, I think that's what you need to do to motivate yourself to stick with it, because we can all give people food lists. The knowledge is there. You can buy a book, Whole30, and yeah, there's some individuality there, but most diets actually work. What doesn't work is the long-term commitment, and people fall off. So yeah, find that why. That's what we teach.
That's a great point, buddy. Yeah. And
Well,
it's like the go ahead, Tiffany. Did you say have something?
I was wondering too if she didn't mean how to eat healthier, but just motivating themselves to cook for one. I know my grandmom, after she lost her husband, she didn't eat very well anymore, just because she, I think as women caretakers, we're so often used to cooking because we're taking care of others. So to motivate yourself, if that's the direction that you're coming from, I would say, to motivate yourself, maybe get a cookbook, something that gets your mouth salivating, get some ideas that tends to lean more towards the self-love too, and caring about yourself the way that you did when you were giving that love to others. Just recognizing that you deserve to treat yourself and treat your body to those nourishing meals, even if it is just you. And if it is, try to make some and make a few meals at a time that are healthy and freeze them. Because I know that's also one of the things my grandma was saying was, oh, it's such a waste, I'll just get a frozen pizza. And I'm like, don't do that. She's like, well, I waste it. So I've got her where she's cooking a couple large meals and then freezing it, and then she can rotate through it. So it's not you cook a pot of something and you have to eat that 3 or 4 days in a row because it's just you. So I don't know if that
No,
helps.
that was beautiful. Thank you very much, Tiffany. Go ahead, Anne Marie.
I think also, food is meant to be shared, like we want to, it's a social activity, right? So the first thing I thought of with that was years ago, a friend and I used to do these parties where we would invite friends over and we would have recipes and we would just all cook together and then at the end sit down and eat that. But if if you have a friend who likes to eat or is maybe on the same path as you, maybe it's about, like once every couple of weeks having like this potluck cooking party where, you know, they come over and bring a meal, you prepare a meal, and you keep some of the stuff that she made, and then you cook together. So right there, like you have 2 or 3 meals that you've made, you know, in this social setting, and then you've got a great couple of days, you know, worth of food, and it's a cookbook, you know, making a couple of recipes out of a favorite cookbook and sharing it.
That's really good advice too. I love that idea. I used to call it, I had a hashtag community kitchen where you just have people that you care about. And then again, it's that double layer nourishment where you're getting the food you love, but you're also nourishing your spirit by being around people you care about and building bonds together and having, you know, legitimate, meaningful connections with each other. Henrietta, did you have something to add?
I just wanted to say that sometimes it's a fundamental desire to eat well. That's something that brings me to it. And I am lucky because my mother taught me how she cooked. And then both my sister and I went off in different directions. But I make very delicious food to the point where I don't mind not going out at all. But that's not everybody's thing, you know. So for someone to want to, so Jane, if you're looking to cook something, is it a competition between a snack food or a prepared food that you already have and actually making something from scratch? That sometimes can be difficult. So I'd like to go back to when Tiffany talked about the tacos, because tacos are already like a base that you can do. And so if you use Buddy's option of just making some ground beef ahead, or if it's not meat that you want, maybe have some quinoa ready and some vegetables, and then make the tacos from the things that you make fresh and from the things you already have in the kitchen, so that it is not so hard to come up with something that is flavorful and tasty.
That's great. Thank you guys so much. So we are at 8 o'clock. So I want to just give anyone a chance to give any final tips or any final kind of ending comments, and we'll probably wrap it up after that. Anybody have anything to add to the night?
Great conversation. I really, I think we have a wealth of knowledge through all of us that we can just keep sharing as we possibly hunker down for a second wave. But I'm really positive about this. And I think the more we integrate this into the community, the more we'll get people, you know, jumping on this Zoom. So thank you, everybody. It was a nice evening.
Thanks, Leslie. Thanks everyone so much for being here. Really appreciate it. Again, to everybody, affiliates and attendees, you can continue to use the same Zoom link for the next 2 and final sessions. So it'll be same time, same place next Tuesday, the 24th, and we're going to be talking about healing well. So we'll be on a huge topic of stress reduction and talking about how that affects our health, as well as peppering in some info about kind of healthy movement. So we're going to kind of pair those 2 together next week. So I know some of you will be back. I hope most of you will be back. So thank you everyone so much for being here. I will get the recording up as soon as possible, hopefully by tomorrow, so we can share this, and hopefully I'll see you all next week. Thank you all so much for your time and your input. It's very much appreciated. Thank you all. Have a great night.